Hello again from Kampala in Uganda. Thank you for joining me here today as we explore some more thoughts from the Bible. And a few days ago, I found myself starting to read through the book of Joshua in my daily Bible reading plan. And everything starts off so very well in that book of the Bible. Joshua takes on the mantle of leadership from Moses to lead the Israelite people, and together they cross the Jordan River into the promised land. They see the water miraculously back up on either side so they can cross through on dry ground, just like with the Red Sea all those years before. The first great city that stands in their way, Jericho, is dramatically conquered with supernatural intervention. The enormous walls collapse into rubble as the Israelites walk around it, and their victory is absolutely overwhelming. Now, I cannot imagine what it must have felt like to witness God moving in that way day after day. In the space of days or weeks, they had seen miracle after miracle. God was moving in mighty, incredible ways. And it must have filled them with confidence about the blessings that God had promised to deliver to his people, assuming that they would prioritize loving him and keeping his commands. And yet, immediately after that first big battle, the Israelites go on to conquer a much smaller, weaker town, and they are soundly defeated. It turns out that a man named Achan had spotted some things in the ruins of Jericho that caught his eye. A beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 silver coins, and a bar of gold weighing a pound. They were temptations that he could not resist. He took those items that were supposed to be dedicated to God, and instead he buried them beneath his tent. All of the people of Israel, they must have heard the blessings proclaimed over them. They were blessings like this in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 8, and then also in verse 11. These blessings are incredible. This is what the Lord promised to do for his people. The Lord will send a blessing on your barns and on everything you put your hand to. The Lord will bless you in the land he is giving you. The Lord will grant you abundant prosperity in the fruit of your womb, the young of your livestock, and the crops of your ground, in the land he swore to your ancestors to give you. The God who had guided Israel with his miraculous hand had promised them prosperity. And yet the lure of immediate wealth had Achan immediately disobeying a direct command from God. Something that had pretty dire consequences for him and his family if you go on and read further in that passage in Joshua. Instead of trusting God for his best, Achan wanted to settle for what he could see right here and now. I wonder what was going through his mind. Well, we're doing pretty well now, aren't we? But what about in the future? This wealth could give my family security for ages, and no one's even going to notice. Who's going to notice this small little bit of loot that I hide in my tent? Maybe it was just simple greed. The shininess caught his eye and his heart, and those precious items became more important to him than obeying the God who had worked such amazing miracles for his people. I don't know what it was. But whatever it was, he decided to settle for less than God's best. How often do we do the same, I wonder? What do we cling on to, even though God has told us to let it go? It could be a thing, it could be wealth or possessions, but it could equally well be an attitude, a sin, an unhealthy relationship, a false sense of security that comes from being in a job that we know is something that God hasn't called us to. There are so many different things. Those are just a few examples. There are so many things that we can cling to. And I wonder how often those things stop us enjoying the very best that God has to offer us. What if Achan had looked at those tempting items and said, well, yeah, they look pretty good, but I trust God. I trust that God's plans for me are better than this thing that I can see right here. There would have been a very different outcome for his life. What if we could do the same? Shake free of those things that aren't healthy for us in our lives and trust God for the extra special that he has planned for us. Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 20 says, now all glory to God, who is able, through his mighty power at work within us, to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. God has infinitely more in mind for us than we can even dream of, than we can imagine at all. Why would we ever settle for less than his best? There's a song that we sing in our church here in Uganda that I always enjoy. And the lyrics go like this: we will never settle for less. We know there's more that's found in you. My prayer for you today is that you would see the immeasurably more that he has in store for you, and that you would learn to let go of anything that might hinder you from seeing it fulfilled in your life. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I'll see you next time.